Hello, homesteaders. Today we're going to continue with our series on solar power. We started out with a very simple solar setup, which just had a solar panel and the appliance. In other words, you might have a solar panel that runs a little light in your yard. That's a simple solar setup. We showed you some little solar battery charges that we use here on our place. Very simple. You have the solar panel, plugs right into the battery to keep the battery charged up. So those are examples of the very simplest kind of solar setups. Then we showed you the solar setup that we use to charge the battery on our little camper. That had a 50-watt panel, a charge controller with fuses, and a battery. And then the battery, of course, was attached to all the appliances in the little trailer. So that's a little bit larger system. It's getting a little more complex. Now we have 4 parts. We have the solar panel, the charge controller, the battery, and the appliance. So that's 4 things. If we go to the most sophistication, we're going to have 5 things. So you can see 5 things is not a whole lot of things that you have to manage. If the most sophisticated system would include an inverter, so that you would have 5 things. You would have the solar panel, the charge controller, the battery. The inverter is attached to the battery, and that allows you to plug in 110 volt AC type appliances into your system. Without that inverter, everything is 12 volt. Today, what we're going to show you is our little tiny house here. That's where we're filming this. And this system doesn't have an inverter. So everything in this tiny house is run on 12 volts. And there are a lot of appliances available because on boats and cars, you have just about every appliance that you can think of available in 12 volts. So when I design the tiny houses, I really like to start people out with a 12 volt system. It's efficient. And that means you get a lot more power because you're not converting it to 110. But a lot of people just like to be able to go to Walmart and buy an appliance and plug it in, with a regular 110. So the only thing we would have to do to this system is add an inverter. And in fact, here's an inverter right here that some of our people who've stayed here in our tiny house have used this inverter. And you can see that it has the 110 plug-ins right there. So this takes from your 12 volt up to 120. So let's take a quick look at the board here. I'll let you go in there. There's the board. And let me kind of take you through. These are the 2 wires from the panel. The plus side goes through a fuse always. Okay, so from the solar panel through a fuse, and then it goes down here to the charge controller. On the negative side, it doesn't have to be fused, so it's coming down here again, goes to the charge controller. From the charge controller then, it goes to the appliance through these fuse banks here. Fuses are very important. If you leave out fuses, you're asking for trouble. The purpose of the fuse is that the fuse will blow out if you try to take too much electricity from there. Instead of burning up the appliance, it simply burns up that little fuse. And these are automobile 12 volt, remember. So these are automobile type fuses. They're called ATCs typically. So there's an example of that little fuse. And we're going to burn this little fuse up rather than burning up our equipment if there's a problem somewhere along the line. And it helps prevent fires. So fuses are very important, and you'll see that in the training manual. Basically, you'll see this system in the training manual as an example of one that you can build very simply. So let's go back here again. We go through the charge controller, and from there, we can go through the fuses, and of course, those go to the appliances, all the lights, all the places where we have these cigarette type plugs right here. You can see that. That's a 12-volt plug. It's called a cigarette plug, cigarette lighter plug. Then we go from this charge controller. The other place we go is to the batteries. So we have two relatively inexpensive batteries. These are what you call a marine battery. They're somewhere between a golf cart battery and a regular car battery. They're a little heavier than a car battery, but they're certainly lighter service, and they won't last as long as a golf cart battery, which is considered a commercial battery. So these guys cost about $100 a piece. The golf cart battery that's about the same size would be about $200 plus dollars for the same size battery. But the difference is that the commercial battery, the golf cart battery, will last a much longer time. It just works better because it's designed to take in lots of energy and give it back very slowly. Okay? So that is the basic system for 12 volts. And all you have to do to take this to the next level is add that inverter. And the way that works is the inverter is attached plus and minus straight to the batteries. So that's it. Now on this little job here, we have a 130 watt solar panel. And that seems to provide just about all the electricity we need in this place. And when I design these spaces, particularly if you're going to have a tiny house like this one, when you design something like this, light that thing up like a Christmas tree. And by that, I mean put lots of lights in. This place is 115 square feet. It's basically 8 feet by 16 feet. And it's got, I think, 9 lamps in it. There's nothing much more depressing than being in a tiny little space and being dark all the time. It's like a cell. That's not what we're after. So by adding lots of lights, you make the place more functional and you make it feel better. And the way a building makes you feel is important. So those are just some things to think about. Well, that's it. That's our little 12-volt system. And it's a place where I really like to start people who are interested in doing solar. It's easy to do. It's relatively inexpensive. This whole system would be less than $1,000. And it has functioned very nicely for several years. The only thing different between this system and the big house system is the number of batteries and the number of solar panels. So we'll talk about that one next time, and that'll be the end of our solar series at this time. Thanks for watching. Keep your eyes on the sky. You might need a little jolt because he's coming back soon.
Yes, we're all in a master plan. Though the things we do are just grains of sand. When these things are touched by the master's hand, then our lives turn into mountains in a master plan. Our lives turn into mountains in a master plan.
I think there's an inverter around here somewhere. Oh, yes. Can you see that? What are you doing? My producer is a pinhead. W-A-D. What a dope. Is it working?